Herzlich willkommen im Live-Club bei Gedankentanken. Ich habe heute eine ganz besondere Ehre, ich habe einen ganz besonderen Gast. Ich werde in Deutsch beginnen, werde gleich aber Englisch sprechen, denn unser heutiger Gast ist Amerikaner. Das Interview ist ganz spontan hier heute in München zustande gekommen. Das macht mich wirklich unglaublich glücklich, weil ich vor einigen Jahren erstmalig sein Buch gelesen habe. Und ich bin nicht der Einzige, sondern viele, viele Millionen Menschen haben auch schon seine Bücher gelesen. Sein bekanntestes Werk ist die Trilogie und ich glaube, nachher kamen noch weitere Bände raus. Inzwischen sind es 37 Bücher, die in 37 verschiedenen Sprachen übersetzt wurden. 37 verschiedene Bücher wohlgemerkt. Sein bekanntestes Werk ist, wie gesagt, die Buchreihe Gespräche mit Gott. Es sind so viele Bücher verkauft worden, er weiß selbst nicht einmal, wie viele Millionen es waren. Ich freue mich unglaublich, dass er heute hier ist und dass er seine Gedanken über das Leben mit uns teilt, über Gott. Schön, dass er da ist. Neale Donald Walsch.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
It's amazing to have you here. I remember, I think 8 years ago, I think it was even the first spiritual book I read, which was yours, A Conversation with God. Gespräche mit Gott is the German title. Maybe give us some information about these books, because I think they make your work very popular.
Well, Alex, I was going through a very difficult time in my life where nothing was really working. All aspects of my life, every part of my life was really falling apart. My relationship with my significant other person, my career had reached a dead end, and my health was going rapidly downhill. And so everything was happening at once.
How many years ago was that?
25, 26 years ago.
When you were 15, right?
Yes.
It's
Of
amazing,
50.
you're already 75.
I thought you said 15. Yes, it was. I was 49 years old when this was happening, and I really, honestly, I was so angry with God because I thought I had done everything right. I had obeyed all the rules. I was a good boy. Well, more or less.
You grew up in a religious family, is that right?
Yes, I grew up in a Roman Catholic family. So, and I thought I was actually really, when I was a younger man, I thought I was going to become a priest because I was totally in love with the idea of God. And I was an altar boy, and the nuns, the sisters in my parish said, he has the calling. He's supposed to be a priest. So they went to my mother and they said, your son is supposed to be a priest. And I wanted to be a priest very, very much until I was 17 years old and somebody gave me a copy of Playboy magazine. Do you know that
Which
magazine?
is not, I heard about it, it's an American magazine, right?
Yes, and they have pictures of ladies with no clothes on. Huge picture. You open it up and they're called fold-outs.
Did you hear that they start to put them close?
Yes?
Yes, they start with it.
So I saw my first picture of a naked lady, and I thought, that's the end of the priesthood. We're not doing that. So, because I was more attracted to the other aspect of life. So I pretty much put religion aside at that point. And I let myself just live, a regular, normal life like anybody else. I was in broadcasting, radio and television. I wound up in newspaper work. I was an editor. I did all these things in the communication arts. But then my life began to fall apart, as I was saying. And I had a terrible automobile accident in which I broke my neck. And when most people break their neck, they die. Or at least they wind up paralyzed. But as it happened, I managed to escape with not too serious of an outcome. But it took me 2 years of rehabilitation, 2 years of healing, so that I could move through life again. And so I lost my job. I had lost my relationship. I had no income to speak of. and I was very angry with God. And
during the difficult times, do you had any help, any coach, any mentor, anything you?
No, I wasn't the kind of person who looked for that. You know, I thought that seeing someone was a sign of weakness. You know, I was a man's man. Real men don't seek advice from mentors or counselors. So I didn't, you know, the only person I thought of maybe talking to was my father, but I was too embarrassed. So I wound up living on the street. It got so bad, my financial situation got so bad, that I wound up living on the sidewalk. In America, we call that a street person. And I was a street person living outside, sleeping outside, and with no income, begging people for anything, even a coin. And I lived that way for a year, not for a week or a month, but for a whole year. And it was a very interesting education. It was worth 4 years of college because I learned a lot about life, living outside on the sidewalk, walking up to people and begging, do you have anything you could spare? Some people would ignore you. Some people would become actually angry. They would say, oh, get a job, go get a job. And every so often a person would have compassion. And they would actually, every so often, maybe twice a week, somebody would actually give you some folding money, actual paper money. They'd reach into their pocket and say, here, pal, good luck to you. And that would make you stop and cry in the middle of the street that somebody would do that. But I became so angry.
May I ask you what's the biggest learning you had during that time? Because you said this was like 4 years on college.
I learned that I need nothing physical to survive and be happy. I thought I needed certain things to be happy. A nice lady, a nice house, a nice car, a nice income, nice clothes, whatever I thought I needed to be happy. And I had none of those things. I had one pair of jeans, 2 shirts. That's all I had in a backpack. And so I learned how little of the physical world I need to be happy. And it was a very important lesson.
But have you been happy during that time? Because it sounds like...
No, toward the end I was, because at first I thought, what has my life come to? With all my talent, with all my brains, because I'm a brilliant human being, incredibly talented, as you can tell. Are we getting the humor here? So anyway, I was very angry. But after, toward the end of that year, I could see, wait a minute, this is a blessing in disguise because it has taught me what is really important in life. And it's not what I thought was important. So I stepped away from my desire for any of those things. And I realized that what was really important to me was having a deep understanding of myself, my true identity, my real essence of who I am. I became very angry with God too during this time, and that's how I began having my conversation with God, because I started one night writing a very angry letter. You know, there happened to be a tablet, a yellow legal pad, on the coffee table in front of me when I finally got off the street. I got a little part-time job somewhere, and I finally got myself off the street into a tiny little apartment, but it was enough for me because I was alone. And I had a tablet on the table, and I woke up one night at 4:30 in the morning, and I began writing a very angry letter to God. Dear God, what does it take to make life work? And what have I done to deserve a life of such endless struggle? Somebody tell me the rules. I'll play the game. Just tell me the rules. Give me the rule book. And after you give me the rules, don't change them. Because my experience is that life's rules were changing every other week. It was another rule, another way. So I became very angry with God. It was at that point that I heard God's voice for the first time. She said, Neale, do you really want answers to these questions? Or are you just getting it off your chest, just venting? Because if you really want answers, if you're not just blowing off steam, but you really want to know, I can give you answers to those questions.
How was your first experience hearing that voice? Can you give us more?
I thought there was, it was 4:30 in the morning. I thought there was someone in the room. It was maybe my imagination, but I thought I could have sworn I heard a voice over my right shoulder. I turned around, and there was no one there. And I thought, oh, great. Now not only am I broke and I'm sitting here with no job, and now I'm going crazy. I'm hearing voices. Terrific. Now I was really angry. But almost in the next moment, the feeling that I had was one of great inner peace, inner serenity. I want to say deep joy. The kind of joy that you almost start to cry. Have you ever cried for happiness? You ever had tears of happiness? This is what I felt, tears of happiness. I sat there and I thought, something is happening here. And so I began to write down the answers to the questions that I had asked, the answers that were coming to me now in my mind. And the voice began to sound like the voice of my own thoughts, almost a voiceless voice, my own thoughts coming. But I wrote down everything that I was thinking. And of course, the answers made me ask other questions. So then before I knew it, I was in a question, answer experience.
How long have you done this?
I was maybe half the night. It was 4:30 in the morning when it began. And it was until 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock in the morning. But then every night for 2 or 3 months, at 4:15 or 4:20 in the morning, I would awaken spontaneously with an urge to get back to the tablet, to keep on asking questions, and to keep on allowing myself to receive whatever answers I was being given. And very few of the answers made sense to me at that time. I mean, they were not answers I would expect to get. They were very unorthodox answers, very unusual answers. For instance, as one example, I remember when I received the answer, there's no such thing as the 10 Commandments. No such thing as the 10 Commandments? God said, no, who would I command? Everything is me. You are me. There's no separation between us. And there's no such thing as punishment. I would never punish you for anything. Would my right hand slap my left? Say, bad hand. And the left hand would, what? Because we're all the same thing. We're all one.
That is one of your main answers you wrote in that book, that we are one, right?
We are all one. There's only one thing. All things are part of the one thing there is. It's what I've come to call the essential essence, the pure energy of life itself. In human words, love. There's only love. Love is all there is.
There are a lot of questions coming to my mind when you're telling that story. The first question is, was it like, again, that voice from the back, or how did you get all the answers and wrote them down?
As I mentioned, the voice kind of moved into my mind.
Is it something like intuition? That maybe sometimes I ask myself questions as well.
And you get the answer.
I get the answer.
Yes, it was very much like that.
Like intuition, or
you could call it intuition.
Yeah, but very clear in your
very
your
clear,
case.
simple, powerful answers. No doubt, no confusion, no complexity. Very simple, direct answers to important questions.
There's another question, of course, coming into my mind, that many people who watch right now, there's also one voice in my head which says, that cannot be, that's unnormal, that's nothing which works, that God is speaking to a single person. What are you're dealing with that question, I think, for the last 25 years, I guess.
Yes.
What do you ask?
I ask God. I ask God. You know, how do I know this is not my imagination? This is, and well, first of all, and why can't I believe you? Why can't I believe this is the divine bringing through these messages? And God said, for the most unusual reason, the reason you don't believe in my goodness and the fact that I'm talking directly to you is it's too good to be true. And God said to me, if this is God talking now, if I can't be too good to be true, who can? So you're going to have to believe in that which is too good to be true, because that's the definition of God, too good to be true. And so I began to accept that I was really speaking with the divine. Now, here's what I was taught and told in the first dialogue. God said to me, see, the difficulty is you think God's up there somewhere or outside somewhere, but God is the source of wisdom and clarity that exists inside every human being. So every human being has the ability to speak with and interact with wisdom and clarity that exists within all of us, that I call God.
Wow. Another question which comes up, the last 25 years, you really, is a modern language, you would say, disrupt a lot. Like, it's really such a big message you brought out with these books that really, like, for example, the church really is not happy with that messages, because really you demystify a lot of the past which were taught for thousands of years. How do you deal with that many people don't really like the messages?
It's okay with me, because I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything. I have no need to convince anyone of anything. So if a person disagrees with me, you know, if the only thing that my books have done is take people back to their own faith, that's enough. That's the purpose of all art, whether it's literature, painting, music, dance. The purpose of every artistic expression, and books, of course, are artistic expressions. The purpose of every artistic expression is to return a person to their own truth, to give a person back to themselves. They can reclaim their most sacred beliefs. If my books have done nothing but take people back to their most sacred beliefs, that's enough. And you know what? I actually had a minister write me a letter and tell me that. He actually said to me, I can't say that I agree with very much of what's in your books, but thank you for writing them, because they brought me back to what I really believe by simply seeing the opposite. And I wrote him a letter back. I said, good, thank you for writing me that letter. So now we can be in agreement that something of value has come of these books, even if we don't agree on what the value is, whether on the point of view. So I think that it's important for us to see that it's not necessary to agree with someone in order to get something of value from them. So I don't have any problem with people who disagree with me. I only ask them one question. Are you happy? If you're happy, believe what you believe. Don't let me change your mind. But if part of how you imagine God to be has caused you to be confused or unhappy or to wonder, then, and if you want something more metaphysical, then maybe you want to read this book and see if you find anything of value there. Well, it turns out that millions of people have. And when millions of people find something of value in what you've brought through, then that is a sign to me that perhaps it's not so bad after all.
In my opinion, our biggest goal as a human being is to find more connection to your inner self, to your inner power, to your potential, and make it more free, get it out. Or as other people would say, find your inner voice, find the connection to God.